Karoline Leavitt, his press secretary, the woman who keeps insisting Trump didn't draw this or sign this in 2003, she was 5 years old. She was too young even for Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. But she knows. She knows. They're all... I love that these people are so certain he didn't do this.
With all due respect to former President Obama, he has no idea what he's talking about. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel and to cancel his show came from executives at ABC. That has now been reported, and I can assure you it did not come from the White House, and there was no pressure given from the President of the United States. And how do I know that, Kaylee? Because I was with the President of the United States when this news broke in the United Kingdom.
Jimmy Kimmel stared straight into the lens. AIRED footage of the president celebrating his 28-year-old spokeswoman's lips. Then posed what every functional organization would immediately question. Does the White House employ HR? That single sentence held his whole point together. Hilarious because it connects. Crushing because it needs no explanation. No sophisticated production. No surprise confrontations. Simply the president's own voice. An audience drowning in secondhand discomfort. And a comedian who transforms bottled frustration into a punchline? Nobody shakes before sunrise.
After this, I didn't realize she'd be in the room, but she's on my list. Karoline Leavitt.
She's become a star. It's that face, it's that brain, it's those lips, the way they move like she's a machine gun. Is she in the room?
She's in the room.
She's a star, and she's great. She's a great person, actually, but she's, I don't think anybody has ever had a better press secretary than Karoline. She's been amazing.
Back Kimmel by subscribing and share the one thing you admire most. Because we are all Jimmy Kimmel. Step back 30 seconds before the punchline hits. The foundation was effortless. The president aboard Air Force One lavishing praise on Karoline Leavitt in vocabulary far more fitting for a photo shoot than a government briefing. He promised he'd never let her go, fascinated that her lips operated like a weapon. Kimmel never pushed further than necessary. He ran the quote, "Let the quiet carry everything," then landed the blow without flinching.
Like immediately, is that right? How's Karoline doing? Is she doing good? Should Karoline be replaced?
No. That's up to you, sir.
It'll never happen.
Nobody wants to. I said she does a great job. Thank you. Do you want to elaborate on the
And those lips, they move like a machine gun, right?
Do you want to elaborate on the...
Did the White House ever hire HR? The audience exploded because that's precisely what this administration never bothered investing in. Someone mature enough inside those walls whose sole purpose is declaring, "Sir, that's not happening." That's the wound Kimmel opened on national television, not by uncovering something buried, but by stripping away the carefully constructed narrative. Just 2 moments. An uncomfortable truth suddenly readable. An older boss reducing a younger employee to her appearance on taxpayer hours aboard a taxpayer aircraft. As though professionalism was negotiable in workplace, dignity strictly reserved for entry-level staff.
Donald Trump actually said our new military will bring back new focus on fitness. I love the idea that Trump is lecturing these guys on fitness. I mean, if that isn't the fondue pot calling the kettle fat, I don't know what is. Listen up, generals. I want to make something very clear. The Pillsbury Dough president wants you to do Pilates. The only push-ups Donald Trump does are from the side of an ice cream truck. If you get so fat you start breaking escalators, you are unfit to serve in the military.
You know, I don't really know how much he weighs. I can tell you one thing, that if you would ask me what should you do for fitness, I would just say run around yourself 3 times. And you're going to be in great shape. You know?
Evening. Television becomes dangerous when absurdity sits next to reality. Every person watching instantly recognizes which side of that divided screen belongs to their life. Everyone has met the coworker who describes women's appearances like a hobby. Everyone understands the purpose HR serves. But grasping why Karoline Leavitt was already a known face before Kimmel ever touched that footage requires visiting one specific broadcast. June 24th, 2024, on CNN.
That the Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to, not the Trump administration and not the White House and not the Republican Party, who is standing up for law-abiding Americans, not just across the country, but around the world. And that's...
fantasy is more powerful than reality in this MAGA sphere we live in, which meant it was time for our commander in cheeseburger to weigh in on one of the most pressing issues our military faces today: unattractive.
Karoline, serving as a campaign representative at the time, entered an interview and decided to go after the network's anchors instead of addressing anything asked. Casey Hunt severed the conversation mid-thought and pulled the plug on air. That moment ricocheted across breakfast programs, discussion tables, and 7 straight days of fierce argument. That recording became her founding chapter within the media landscape. She was a communicator who approached every television opportunity like a street fight.
Karoline Leavitt, who's sick, she's out of control. And I'm not sure whether she's just demented, ignorant, a stone-cold liar, or all of the above. But the notion that an official White House spokesperson would say that the Democratic Party consists of terrorists, violent criminals, and undocumented immigrants, this makes no sense. That this is what the American people are getting from the Trump administration in the middle of a shutdown. So their actions continue to speak for themselves, which is why they're on the wrong side of public sentiment. Thanks. Yeah.
And he's already figured out where to get the money. Trump today became the first president to sue the New York Times. He's suing the New York Times for $15 billion for defamation. $15 billion. Where does he even come up? These are like numbers my children make up when they're talking about money. I thought he said the New York Times was failing. He thinks they have $15 billion?
Ahead to 2025, she now commands the podium every single day. Yet the most influential figure in that building cannot stop referencing her appearance. Kimmel didn't manufacture this narrative. He simply brought it into focus. She isn't merely a deflection machine. She's a woman in her 20s, being openly reduced to her looks by the very man who placed her there. The nation is expected to find that endearing. This is where Kimmel proves himself an editor before an entertainer. He refuses every urge to mock Leavitt directly, rehash her confrontations, or weaponize the CNN moment for easy applause. He reaches further. His target is the natural.
Press secretary apparently inadvertently admitted that Tom Homan was in a meeting with undercover FBI agents. She made that admission yesterday when she got carried away in saying something that no one else has said. She claimed Mr. Homan never took the $50,000.
The president asked the Justice Department to close the case, and does Holman have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Homan did absolutely nothing wrong.
An environment shaped entirely by whoever sits at the very top. When Kimmel raises the HR question, he isn't targeting the employee. He's putting the employer on trial. That's precisely why the bit connects regardless of political leaning. You don't need any hatred toward this administration to see that a commander praising a author's mouth like he's reviewing a pinup isn't leadership. It's a live demonstration reel for sensitivity training. It also mirrors a sharper Kimmel approach throughout 2025. Surface the evidence. Present the receipts. Drop one grounded question.
Trump announced the suit this morning. He wrote, "Today I have the great honor of bringing a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times, one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country. The Times has engaged in a decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, me, my family business, the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. The New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that..."
Following his unexpected suspension in September and rapid return, Kimmel came back sharper than before. Less desperate for reaction, far more focused on evidence. He's become steadier than every controversy swirling around him, and that stillness makes each blow hit deeper. Because Trump and everyone surrounding him absolutely cannot ignore the bait. Those one-liners consistently snowball into 48-hour conversations, precisely the last outcome any seasoned communications team prays for after the boss has publicly embarrassed himself.
The president has been hard at work coming up with all sorts of nonsense to distract us from the Epstein files, including, I don't know if you saw this, but he made a major announcement. I am ordering my administration to declassify and release all government records related to Amelia Earhart. Her final tip and everything else about her. Thank you for your attention.
So first of all, who told her that Mr. Homans never took the $50,000? Who told her that? Was it Mr. Homans? He has not dared to say that himself, and no one else has dared to say that. But what you saw there, in her frenzied attempt to claim that Tom Homan never took the $50,000, she actually just said, quote, "You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters," end quote. So there you have the president's press secretary admitting that Tom Homan was in a meeting with undercover FBI agents. That's the White House confirming at least that fact. That's the White House officially confirming that Tom Homan was in a meeting with undercover FBI agents.
Worth clarifying here, because misinformation absolutely thrives on narratives like this. Kimmel never removed Karoline from any program. She has never once appeared as a guest. No confrontation happened on camera. No dramatic exit. No legal battle. Reality was quieter and considerably more damaging. A television monologue reshaped the entire conversation for millions of viewers by turning the president's own statements into weapons against his reputation. Within any media context that cuts deeper than a visible argument, an argument fades. A perception sticks. And once that perception settles, the most powerful man alive sounds like someone complaining at happy hour.
Trump says the Times is run by a bunch of lefties. He claims they're a mouthpiece for the Democrats. I have to say, I did do today's Wordle, and I don't know if you did, but he might be right. Besides how ridiculous it is, this might be one of the funniest legal documents I've ever seen. It's quite a tongue bath. One page lists Trump's, quote, hundreds of history-making media appearances, including WrestleMania 5, All My Children, Ghost Can't Do It, 2 Weeks Notice, Days of Our Lives, Miss USA, Miss Universe, The Ali G Show, Marmalade, and much.
Congressional figures take their shot, labeling Leavitt's language disturbed and unhinged. Everything loops straight back to the man who celebrates it. Karoline swings back, and the cultural battlefield erupts. Then everything loops again to the man who treasures his spokesperson most when she's generating headlines. That's just how gravity operates. Every spinning thing returns to its source. Here's your opening push. If any Kimmel moment from this recent stretch stuck with you, whether that HR observation or the Air Force One becoming Mouth Force One callback, leave it below so we can build the sharpest possible cold open for the short dot.
It's important to try to put things in perspective. Last time my 8-year-old Billy were laying in bed, and he told me that in 5 billion years, we're all going to die. The human race is going to be gone because the Earth is going to be consumed by the sun. And I was like, what? And I asked Alexa, I said, is that true? And she said, yeah, it is true. And you know what? Maybe we shouldn't worry so much, right, Guillermo?
Yes, yeah.
Maybe that's the moral to the story. Let's just be thankful that we are in the strong, capable, darkly bruised baby hands of the orangutan in the Oval Office.
Tap. Subscribe if you want the finished version the moment it drops. Part of why this struck so deeply is that Kimmel's viewers understand workplace reality. They recognize that suffocating laughter. They understand why promising never to swap someone out isn't flattering when it leaves the mouth of the planet's most powerful employer about the youngest person sitting at his senior table. Pull the titles away and say it plainly. Her appearance carries professional value to me, and that's my reason for keeping her. That isn't guidance. That's a sign pointing directly toward the HR office now.
Any we may have heard of, by the way? 7 wars. Last week it was 10 wars. Now it's 7. Tomorrow it'll be 15 wars. This guy is ending. He ended Star Wars. I don't know if you heard that. He did. Poor Mark Hamill had to move on to other things. Listen, I have an idea of how you can get people to stop talking about releasing the Epstein files. Release the Epstein files.
Raises something far more unsettling for the administration. What genuinely is Karoline Leavitt's role meant to look like? In the ideal version, a spokesperson shields policy, presents reality, and swallows criticism, so the president floats above the noise. In this version, she's decoration inside his ongoing monologue about his own taste. The material generates itself because none of it is actually material. You cannot walk into that podium demanding professional respect at 2 in the afternoon when your employer already reduced you to internet content by 11 in the morning. Kimmel's viewers don't require a civics lesson. They require someone to hit pause. He obliges.
Here's this video of what seemed to be garbage bags being thrown out of the window of the Lincoln bedroom. That's the White House. The official response from the White House said it was maintenance work being done while Trump was off on one of his many golf weekends. But Trump is even contradicting his own White House now.
There is a video that is circulating online now of the White House where a window is open to the residence upstairs and somebody is throwing a big bag out the window. Have you seen this?
The reason that HR joke traveled so far was something quieter and more unexpected. It entirely avoided the tired, recycled argument about whether evening comedy has drifted too far into one political corner. That conversation dissolves instantly the second the material is grounded in something every employed human being has personally navigated. Nobody is suddenly defending their voting history. Everyone is simply nodding at a dynamic they have witnessed from their own desk. The actual target wasn't any governing philosophy or right-leaning agenda. It was something broader and far more rage-inducing. That snug, unspoken belief that accumulating enough authority means the expectations holding ordinary people accountable simply stop reaching you. That ascending far enough transforms basic human decency from a requirement into a personal preference. The comedian's underlying argument arrived without any unnecessary decoration. Greater proximity to consequential decisions should sharpen your conduct, not soften it. Carrying that much institutional weight should produce stronger, deeper restraint, sharper sensitivity toward those beneath you in the structure, not a growing comfort with ignoring all of it entirely. When millions of lives sit within your influence, acceptable behavior shouldn't bend toward your convenience. It should stretch toward your obligation. The audience responded immediately and without hesitation, because every ordinary working person sitting in that room already knew exactly what he meant.
Our president is scheduled for his annual checkup tomorrow at Walter Reed Hospital. This will be his second yearly checkup this year. He had one 6 months ago, but it feels like it's been a year, so they decided to do it again. And it's smart to do this sort of thing before Halloween. If he gets a clean bill of health, he can continue his annual tradition of eating all Eric's trick-or-treat candy. Checkup will take place in the morning tomorrow, but the White House has already released the results. He is 7'2", 180 pounds, and his erections can deadlift a Cybertruck.